Bum 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 fascists. Bum 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 fascists. Welcome to Badass Jews, episode number 2. I'm Aaron Berg, and in case you're wondering, yes, this is real diamonds and gold, and I purchased it for $48,000 of UNRWA money. I was able to tap in and somehow hack into the system, and I took the money. That's it. I bought this. It's real diamonds and gold. As always, my much better co-host, absolutely brilliant. You know him as a classical historian. Please welcome Andrew Davidsburg.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aaron. It's a pleasure to be here with you once.
It's good to see you.
Here at the Stand Studios, yeah?
Is that what it's called?
I think we're calling it the Stand Studios.
That's what we call it.
Amazing.
The Stand Studios.
It's such a pleasure to be sitting with you.
It's been a while since we touched base.
Yes.
Since I went on vacation to Disney.
Yes.
You asked me about it. I said it was very exciting. It's long days. It's hard work. Like, I know now what it's like to be in the IDF. It is difficult. The heat. It's 90. I was schwitzing out there.
Yeah.
I went on Guardians of the Galaxy and Tron.
Okay.
Are you a roller coaster guy?
I am a roller coaster guy.
You heard of these ones?
I have not heard of them. They weren't there last time I was there.
They're insane.
Okay.
You used to work there.
I did. I was in the Disney College program. I worked at Pinocchio's Village Haas. I was making $5.15 an hour, selling Geppetto fries.
This boggles my mind because I talked to someone else that worked there, my friend Pete, who's the comic that's at the stand all the time, high energy guy. He's from Tampa. Jared Waters.
Okay.
Really funny guy. And he said he worked at Disney too. And I was like, oh, you guys must have made great money and had killer benefits. No. How is this possible when Disney is they make millions of dollars a year at that theme park, right?
Of course. Well,
Give me an estimate. How much are they pulling?
$1 billion.
They don't make $1 billion in a day. It's impossible.
It's probably not.
Millions and millions of dollars. How many people go through the park that you worked in? Oh, you didn't have access to those numbers.
I have no idea.
Is billion the only number you know?
I was selling French fries.
Okay,
so
you were a low-down guy.
a low-down guy.
He also told me that all the people behind the scenes are like immigrants and are like some illegals probably.
I guess is
$1 billion.
$1 billion. A lot of college students. They have a college program where they bring down
An average annual attendance of over 58 million visitors. So that's 1 million and change week.
That's like a 20th of $1 billion.
Oh, so it just seemed like there was probably 1 million a day. But that's 1 million a week.
Yeah.
So that's 50,000 visitors a day go through the Walt Disney World parks. It's crazy. I was there. I was in front of that castle.
Yeah, we used to go down. My family used to go every Christmas. We'd go to Disney on Christmas.
This is a thing Jews get to do is go on vacation to places during Christmas.
Yes.
So you would go to Walt Disney World.
Thank you, Jesus. Yeah.
It must have been crazy busy.
Actually, no. It used to be empty. We would go to the front of the lines. There was never any wait for anything on Christmas Day.
Come on.
Now it's crazy. No. This is like 20 years ago.
Yeah, because now America's full of heathens that don't believe in Christ.
True.
So
it's true.
Yeah, this is it's expensive.
It's expensive.
Would you drive down there or fly?
Drive down to Florida.
From here?
No, Maryland. I go down to Maryland.
Still a hike.
It was a hike.
17-hour drive?
Yeah, 13 hours.
You stop overnight or you do the whole drive?
Yeah, stop.
Where would you stop?
Georgia, right on the
At a
border.
motel?
At a motel.
Whole family, one room?
Yeah, whole family.
Boy,
one
that's
room.
a trip, huh?
Get some barbecue.
Oh, Pete, you imagine growing up that trashy?
Right.
Just go to Georgia, stay in a motel room. I know. I'm envious of it. Look at that drive.
I remember we would stop when we got to the welcome station, the welcome rest stop in Georgia.
Yeah.
And pick up flyers for hotels. Hotels and motels.
Yeah.
Find the cheapest one and stop at that.
Oh,
stay at
God.
that.
That's a family.
Yes.
We used to go on for Christmas. We would go to Florida as well, but we'd go to like where we sent our grandparents to die. So we'd go stay like
Century Village.
Century Village,
Yes.
yeah. You had a Century Village place too,
Of course.
Yeah, and it was Deerfield Beach was the closest beach. Yeah.
My grandmother was in Deerfield also. What
No
building?
way.
What building?
I mean, I'll research it.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you this, me and Rich Voss went golfing a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And right across the street was Century, and I'm like, oh my God, this is where I spent my childhood. There it is. That's Century Village. Pete, this is where old Jews, oh, that building over there on the right. Go to the furthest right. These are the apartments. So basically, these were like tenement houses set up, and you would buy them. I think back in those days, you'd pay 25, 30 grand for one of these places.
Probably.
There was a pool, there was a golf course, there was tennis, but the old people would just go there, sit in their places and smoke. Now, 175 grand.
Yeah. So my grandmother lived in one of the taller ones, one of the high rises.
Yeah, the high rises were there.
4 stories.
Oh my God, does this bring back memories?
Remember any hard work?
And I'm telling you, like the projects, it looks like the projects from outside and inside, but you were ecstatic to be there. And we were from Canada, so you would go to this in Florida. They had sugar cereal you'd never heard of, soda you'd never heard of. We'd go to Winn-Dixie or Publix and be like, oh, Albertsons if you were lucky. And now they renovate all these places. I mean, it's horrible. They got all these rules. They hated the grandchildren would come down during Christmas. They'd be furious. Your kids aren't supposed to dive in the pool, Helen. Don't let them dive. Why are they diving in the pool? Oh, God. You're hot. Stop yelling at the kids. Your heart's going to give out. Yeah, I mean, that's what it was. So you would go to Disney World.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. It was exhausting. I took the girls, and I was so overdosed with female energy. It was my daughter, my wife, and my wife's mother. Oh, wow. So I was just a cuck. I was
God bless.
I just paid for everything, and I tried to stay out of the way. I took them out to dinner at the Princess Castle. We had a dinner reservation for 7:10. We're there. It's about 1 o'clock. I go, look, we got to move this dinner up. And they're like, to what? I'm like, we're not going to last till 7 o'clock. We were already exhausted. I moved it up to 2:10. We did lunch. And the beast came out and walked around. Wow. My daughter cried 3 times, and I paid $150 for lunch. And it was mediocre at best. The next night, we went to an Italian restaurant. Nancy, my mother-in-law, paid for it, and it was delicious. It was, decent Italian food. Okay. And that was in the Epcot Center where you walk around, all these little worlds. Old people go there and get drunk. They drink around the world.
Well, that's because every station, every country has a different beer on tap.
Really?
Yeah, so you can go country to country to country and get a different beer on at every country.
Via Napoli. Maybe that's where we went? I guess it is. It was in Epcot.
Via Napoli, yeah.
Oh, I said Napoli.
It sounded very fancy.
Good with that might be where we went. Yeah, right, maybe. I mean, it looked better than that where I was sitting.
I worked at Pinocchio's Village House, and then I worked at Liberty Tree Tavern. And Liberty Tree Tavern was in Magic Kingdom, and it was Thanksgiving dinner every night. And we actually had a celebrity come in.
Who?
They sat Tommy Hilfiger.
Oh, yeah?
Tommy Hilfiger and his whole family came in, and I sat him.
Yeah, he probably didn't have to wait in line.
He didn't have to wait in line.
I went to the Brown Derby for lunch.
That's it, yeah.
And then Christine told them that I was a comic, and then I guess they Googled me, so they asked me to sign the celebrity book at the front. So I posted a picture of that on my Instagram. But
that's it.
There it is.
That's it. At Thanksgiving dinner every night, the characters would come through.
What park is that in?
Magic Kingdom.
Oh, wow.
Magic Kingdom. It was a tavern, but we didn't serve alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many disappointed parents.
Oh, boy. You can't smoke anywhere on the property.
Yeah.
I was going through nicotine gum. And it wasn't that bad. I just didn't smoke all day. And then as soon as we got back to the hotel, I'd go and puff on a cigarette. Yeah. I'll tell you who never went to Disney World.
Who's that?
Our topic of conversation for today.
That's why we're here?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're here to talk about badass Jews, not Disney World. This isn't a travel podcast. Who do we got today, Andrew?
Okay, today we're talking about Vidal Sasson. Some people might know his name from products at the Rite Aid in the hair, maybe not you, but in the hair care section.
Yeah.
Some people might know him from his salons, but most people probably don't know that he was both an anti-fascist fighter and served in the IDF.
Did he also make jeans?
Not that I know of.
Ooh la la, Sassoon. Vidal Sasson.
Jeans, he did.
It's possible.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Okay.
Can you tell me about him?
Maybe, yeah. I can. Of course I can tell you about him. I'd be happy to.
I remember the hair product. That's what he is most famous for.
Yeah, he's most famous for the hair products, but he was like a celebrity in and of itself, outside of just the hair. But we'll start at the beginning.
Okay.
So Vidal Sassoon is born to Betty Bellin and Jack Sassoon, January 17th, 1928, in Hammersmith, West London.
Okay.
Right. His mother's family comes from Ukraine. They flee anti-Semitic violence in 1890. They end up in London. His father's family is from Salonika. So his father is Sephardi, and that's where the Sassoon name comes from. His father is not a guy of high moral character. Vidal used to say that his father spoke 7 languages and had sex in all of them.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I met a guy last night that spoke 7 languages. He heckled me at a show.
What?
He was insane. Okay. I think if you speak 7 languages, you're probably nuts.
Probably. Did he heckle you in 7 languages?
No, 1, but he was very abrasive.
Okay.
So he spoke what languages? Do you know?
I have absolutely no idea. I assume
French, English, Spanish, Ukrainian.
Wait, are we talking about Jack Sassoon now or your heckler?
Jack Sassoon.
Okay.
This is what I'm guessing.
Okay.
Dutch, German,
yeah,
Yiddish.
I think you got probably 2 or 3 of those. I imagine Greek is in there somewhere because he did come from Greece.
Okay.
But yeah, 7 languages. We'll go with
cheated on his wife like crazy.
Yes, cheated on his wife like crazy, but also left her very early on. So Vidal Sassoon's father walked out. I think it was around the age of 5. Vidal Sassoon's mom is left just totally in the lurch. She ends up having to leave the apartment in the middle of the night, flee eviction, and ends up at her sister's named Katie. There's 7 of them living in this small 2-bedroom apartment.
How many?
A lot. There's 7 of them living in this 2-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
So it's really difficult. They're poor. There's 1 bathroom. It's down the hall. Sassoon talks about during the winter that it's so cold that when he gets to the bathroom, he's praying that somebody had been sitting there before him so he doesn't literally freeze his ass off.
Yeah.
Things just go from bad to worse. It ends up that there's not enough room in the apartment for him. His mother has trouble finding work, so she ends up having to take him down to the local orphanage. And it's this like horrible, gut-wrenching scene that he talks about where he gets there and he's crying and he doesn't want his mom to leave. His mom is crying. She doesn't want
How old
to
is
go.
he at this point?
I think he's a 6 or 7 at this point.
Jeez. Okay.
He's very young. This was, I don't know if it's so common now, but this was something that they used to do back in the day if you couldn't afford to take care of your kids. He's only able to see his mom once a month. It's really, really tough. And to compound things, at one point early on, he sneaks away and goes to try and find his father. He ends up at his father's sister's house. She takes him over to his father. When he gets there, his father basically says to him, "What are you doing here?" Immediately takes him back to the orphanage and says, "Don't bother me again."
Wow.
This is a tough start for him, a really tough start. 1940, war breaks out. The orphanage moves out to the countryside. He ends up staying with his family. They're relatively kind to him, and things start to turn around. In 1939, he moves out to the country. In 1940, his mother shows up saying, "Vidal, you got a new dad," right? She's gotten married.
So she gets married. She's got enough money to take care of the kid now. Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
The other kids, they got to stay? She
No.
just got rid of Vidal?
So she just had 2 sons. The younger son, his name was Ivor. I don't know the correct pronunciation of it, unfortunately. Right. But he was a baby when Vidal left. After a short time, once he grew old enough, he had to go to the orphanage also.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not good Jewish parenting. Most people think of Jewish mothers as overbearing and extremely nurturing.
Uh-huh.
It's the opposite. This is the opposite.
I think this was like a last resort.
Okay.
This was like the only thing she could possibly do.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When you were young, did you ever say to your mom, "I wish you never had me"? Because kids say that.
They do.
Pete, did you ever say that?
Yes.
Kids say that. "I wish you never had me."
Okay,
And then you go, "Well, you want to go to the orphanage?"
Yeah.
Boy, that's not fun.
That sounds like the start of a movie. I wish you never had me.
It's called Annie. They've remade it several times. My daughter's doing it at school next week.
Wow. Okay.
You ever heard of it?
I have heard of it.
Hard Knock Life? That's what the orphanage
It's
was
the
like
movie with
Vidal.
Jamie Foxx, right?
They remade it one too many times. That movie's been remade, I think.
So, Vidal always has this general, positive vibe to him, and he When he talks about the orphanage, he says there were positive things about it. They had a bath there, which was just a luxury at that point. He got to play soccer a lot. So, generally pretty positive about it. Although I imagine it was much more difficult than he lets on. So 1940, his mother shows up. You got a new dad. It happens that this guy happens to be fantastic.
You've got a new forfeit. You've got to go home now. Oh, hello, Vidal. Welcome home. I heard you've been at the orphanage. No more of that for you. And me in love with your mummy now.
Yeah, that's actually a quote from the
I
book.
bought you some lozenges. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this guy's name is Nathan Goldberg. And this guy's really formidable.
Good name.
Yeah, right?
Sounds successful right out of the gate.
Right?
Oh, she did good. Getting rid of old Cheaty McSeven languages.
So this guy, Nathan Goldberg, is like...
Love it.
Right?
I'm telling you.
He's just like...
Law firm, whatever you want. I'm Nathan Goldberg, and I'm here to date your mother. Hi, Vidal. I'm Nathan Goldberg, your new benefactor. Welcome home to your lovely, lovely home. It's a hard knock life, no more. It's a hard knock life, your mom's me all. Nathan Goldberg.
Nathan Goldberg.
The savior of the Sassoon.
Yes. Yeah, so Nathan Goldberg is sort of this, like, man of the world.
You don't say.
He teaches Vidal about, like, dressing well, about opera, about the arts, but he's...
Now I'm really wondering about Nathan.
Right?
All right.
But he's also a semi-professional boxer. He's buddies with this guy named Ted Kid Lewis, who's a world-famous boxer at the time, one of a handful of Jewish British boxers that would win world titles. So he's really just sort of this Renaissance man. Teaches him to be a man, but also teaches him, about some of the finer things in life. So shortly after that, they return to England. There's not really a ton of work for anybody out in the country. They return to England, and Vidal gets a job as a bike messenger.
And how old is he now?
I think he's around 10 or 11 at this time. He's still in school. He's riding around as a bike. I'm sorry. He's riding around as a bike messenger, delivering messages out to the docks.
Okay.
Right, from Center City to the docks. This is a difficult time to be a bike messenger because there's bombing campaigns going on from the Germans, and he says that each day he has to take a different path because there are bombed out buildings, and the path he took the day before is no longer passable.
Okay.
He sees dead bodies, he sees blood, he sees gore. It's an exposure that I imagine people in war just sort of face, but I think it affects them to a certain degree, and maybe it makes him a little more comfortable with violence. Not that he becomes a violent man, but just seeing this, I think, at a young age affects him. So at the age of 15, his mom has a premonition. She wakes up one morning and she says, Vidal, I believe you are going to be a world-famous hairdresser. Now, this is not really what a 15-year-old boy wants to hear.
No.
He has these dreams of being a soccer player. I don't know if he was good enough or not, but has these dreams of being a soccer player. She's not hearing it. So she drags him down to Adolph Cohen Salon, which is a world-famous salon at the time.
In London.
In London. It's like...
Which is known for its fashion.
Yeah.
Forward motion in terms of being stylish.
Yeah.
London is one of the hubs of fashion.
It certainly is.
As is New York.
Yes.
Paris.
Milan.
Toronto. And, of course, Suffolk County, Long Island.
The
epicenter.
Yes, where Tommy Bahama does his fashion show every year.
Nice clothes. Tommy Bahama. I heard you never don't trust somebody in a Tommy Bahama shirt.
I used to own a Tommy Bahama shirt.
And?
I don't know. That's all.
You own
I owned
a
one.
couple shirts?
No, just one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought you meant you owned a store. Okay.
No.
But you digress.
I digress. I apologize. So she drags him down to the salon. She goes in. She's talking to this guy, Adolf Cohen. She's saying, this is my boy, Vidal. I have this dream. He's going to be a fabulous hairdresser.
That's a weird way to take someone in for a job.
It is.
I had a dream that I'd go to a comedy club. I had a dream I was going to be a famous comedian. Can I start? I guess you could. Do you know, I heard Keanu Reeves went to this agency in Toronto, an acting agency, and walked in, and he was like, I want to be an actor, and I heard I need an agent or something. And it's like insane, and sure enough, they signed him, and he blew up in Canada.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Never happened for me. I went to the same agency. You know what they did? They called my agent at the time. They said, your client's here trying to poach another agent. Then my agent called me, and she goes, are you at Oscar's Abrams Zimmel right now? And I go,
Oscar.
Yeah. That's what happened to me.
Can you tell me the name of the agency once again?
Oscar's Abrams Zimmel, OAZ. They were very famous in Toronto. They were the bigwigs.
Okay, amazing. So she pops in. She's got Vidal.
This is my son. I had a dream he's going to be a famous hairstylist.
Dream he's going to be a famous hairstylist. Adolf Cohen says, listen, it costs money to be an apprentice. You got to pay me. She says, I don't have the money.
Yeah.
Vidal is through the roof. He's so excited. He's, thanking the guy so much. Thanks for your time. Sorry it's not going to work out.
Because he doesn't want to do it.
He doesn't want to be a hairdresser.
Yeah.
They walk outside. As they're walking away, Adolf Cohen comes outside and says, wait. Your boy is so polite. I'll do it for free.
Oy.
I'll do it for free.
Dream ruined for him.
Right? So he spends the next couple years
working for a Jewish guy named Adolf. So Adolf takes him under his wing.
Yeah.
At the hairdresser place.
At the hairdresser place.
Now, were hairdressers back then the way people would make fun of hairdressers now?
No.
All right.
No. It was a much more...
Careful with what you say.
Yes, I'll just say it was a more. It
was a more.
I'll leave it a more.
Okay, thanks.
Also an interesting time to be a hairdresser. War's still going on.
What were the styles back then?
Like bouffants, like the big hair.
Well,
perms.
Like a bouffant.
Perms.
On men.
On men, yes.
Big blown out perms on men.
Yes. But apparently during air raids, you couldn't shut the perm machine off.
Yeah.
So there was a sign that said, Madam, during an air raid, you are permed at your own risk.
Oh, you got to stay in the perm machine.
You got to stay in the perm machine.
If there's bombs dropping.
Yeah, everyone else would go downstairs.
People in the Middle East are complaining. Could you imagine? There's bombs going off. You said, I can't, my perm. Boy, that's a good Jewy complaint to have. Madame, you have to leave now. No, I'm perming. I'm perming. It's short for permanent. I love that.
Yeah. So, his hair career is slowly growing, but more importantly, the war ends. They're starting to learn about what occurred with the Holocaust, with the Shoah, and his mother starts to become an ardent Zionist. So she starts having meetings in her house about Zionism. What you have to understand is this is 1946, so it was a very tricky time in the UK to be a Zionist because it's during the British Mandate. The British have not acted on their promise to create a homeland for the Jews. It's a very, very tricky time to be a Zionist because the British Mandate is coming to an end. There are forces within Israel that are fighting against the British, trying to get them out and trying to release them from control. There are British soldiers that are dying in the Palestinian Mandate. There are Jews that are dying in the Palestinian Mandate. Tons of politics. So they have to be a little bit secretive about these meetings. At this point, Vidal's job is to stand outside and send people like 2 by 2 into his mother's house. It's sort of like a little
Noah's Ark.
Exactly. Only in pairs.
Yeah. It was pairs.
It was
Noah's
pairs,
Ark.
right?
Yeah. But people.
Yeah. So, sending these people in just a few at a time, so he gets a little taste of like danger, a little taste of action. He gets to go in and listen to these speakers, and there's one particular speaker that really sort of like gets him in like the gut. And this speaker, not exactly sure who he was, but talks about how the English Channel is only 21 miles wide, and that's the only thing that kept him from a concentration camp. And that really hits home for him. He's always been proud of being Jewish, but he really understands how precarious their situation could have been. Shortly after, there's another speaker that comes in. His name is Jackie Myrovich, and he's a member of the 43 group. Now, I'm going to get into what the 43 group is.
Okay.
But first, I'm going to go back just a little bit and give a tiny bit of history about what's going on in England this time. Okay? So prior to the war, there was this guy named Oswald Mosley, and he was founder of what's known as the British Union of Fascists. And
Buff.
Exactly. Buff. These guys were pro-Nazi. They were pro-fascism. They were scumbag, also known as the Black Shirts. They would march in the streets, give speeches. It all sort of culminated in what is known as the Battle of Cable Street. This was sort of the beginning of sort of Antifa as you know it, but real Antifa. In 1939, that's the Battle of Cable Street. In 1939, there was the Defense Regulation 18B, which essentially took all of the fascists and shipped them off to the Isle of Man into an internment camp. Basically doing to the fascists what we did the Japanese, but the fascists actually deserved it. As the war comes to a close, so they're there on this Isle of Man for the remainder of the war. As the war comes to a close, they've just been hanging out on this British island. They come back. They return home, and they have the same mentality that the Germans were right. We should have entered on the other side and start to organize once again. So they start going out into the streets and having these same speeches about fascism, anti-Semitism, all that stuff. You have to understand that in World War II, there were a lot of Jewish soldiers that were fighting for Great Britain. So these guys are coming back from war, having just fought the Nazis, having just fought the fascists. They're coming back home to their homes, and these guys, the British Union of Fascists, are out on the street preaching and saying the Jews caused all this. The Jews should be gone. Doesn't sit well with them. So in 1945, there's this guy named Jeffrey Ham, also a fascist, sort of second in command to Oswald Mosley. He's out giving a speech. At the same time, there are these four guys. Morris Beckman, Jerry Flamberg, Alex Sherman, and Len Carson.
Yeah.
They're all sitting at the Maccabi.
The 43 group.
Yeah, so they're all sitting at the Maccabi Club canteen. So this is just a place where Jews hung out to do sporting things. They decide to head to a pub near Whitestone to grab a drink. When they pull up to the pub, they see a bunch of fascists outside chanting, PJ, 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 which means perish Judah.
Wow.
Which is essentially kill the Jew. Pull up out front. Flamberg says, saw the drinks, let's go. So they immediately make their way, pushing their way to the front of the stage. They're standing right up there. There are some stewards up front that are trying to keep everyone calm and keep things in order. Fascist stewards. So Len Carson walks up to them. There's two of them standing in the front. He walks up to him and says, I want to buy a copy of the British League Review. British League Review is their newspaper. They tell him how much. He goes to pull coins out of his pocket. As he's pulling the coins out of his pocket, he drops them on the ground. These two guys bend down to pick it up, and he goes, bah! Takes their two heads, smashes them together.
Love that move.
They're out of the fight.
Yeah.
Right? Next guy squares up against Beckman. Morris Beckman is not that big of a guy. He puts his dukes up. The steward is a big guy. He puts his dukes up. Morris Beckman kicks him in the crotch. Mm-hmm. Guy goes down. Jerry Flamberg walks up to the stage and in like a move out of the Hulk, takes the stage, not like a giant stage, but like takes the stage, pulls it up with two hands, topples it over, sends Jeffrey Ham off to the ground, jumps over the stage that's now on its side, on top of Jeffrey Ham, beats the crap out of him. The other steward gets away, all the fascists disperse. So they decide there's a few things that come of this. One, they sort of enjoy it. Beating up fascists for them is fun. And two, it was effective. It shut down what they were doing. They didn't return. So they continue to do it. They gain a little bit of, traction on it. Yeah. And they decide to put together a team. They set up a meeting. A bunch of former soldiers get together. and they decide they're going to start breaking up these rallies. As it happens, there were 43 people in the room at the time, so they became the 43 group.
Yeah. Do we have a picture of these people, Pete? Sounds like a cool thing. This sounds like Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
But in England. So Inglourious Bastards with horrible teeth.
There's a few great books on them, too.
Yeah.
One of them, We Fight Fascists, is really well researched. Fantastic.
Sharp-looking bunch of guys, too.
Yeah.
Not a bunch of ne'er-do-wells.
Not at all. These guys were serious. These guys.
Who's the big guy with the slick back hair?
That's Jerry Flamberg.
Boy, he's a big guy.
Yeah, he was 250 pounds, pure muscle.
Do you think these people have informed when you hear about Americans today that are like, we want to fight fascists? Do you think that these were the people that started? Look at them when they're old.
So this is the interesting thing, is that
Hey, I need my pills. Why are my pants up to my chest? I love it. Still badass Jew.
I still wouldn't mess with him.
No, the guy on the right looks
Still wouldn't
crazy.
mess with him, right?
Oh, boy. Who's that? Who's the bald guy? Boy, he's a badass. Look at that. That guy makes my face look moisturized. I mean, he has seen some life. Boy, that's my dude right there. People come after me, tell me, I've lived life. That's how you get lines like that. The other guy looks like his manager. Are you ready to fight me, Mike Tyson?
I don't know which guys those are. It's hard.
Well,
it's hard
they're
to tell.
two of the originals.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Tommy
Jerry
Gould and Jerry Flamberg.
Flamberg, yeah.
Which one was Flamberg?
Look, I guess he's on the right.
I hope so. That's the guy I like. That's my guy right there.
There you go. Yes.
Jerry Flamberg. Oh, wow. He almost looks dead in that picture.
Can you describe him? Can you?
I think we could probably bring this picture up in video. Well,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, that's not him, is it?
It's Jerry
Oh,
Jerry
boy.
Abrams,
Some of them not looking good.
Harry Kaufman.
Harry Kaufman.
I don't recognize that. I'm sure he's in
Wow. This is them. What
Yeah. So I mean, these guys were serious.
And this was all happening in England at the time of Vidal Sasson
after the
on the come up.
After the war.
Yeah.
So this organization is huge. They're sending people out to recruit. They send somebody to speak at the meetings that are being held by Vidal's mother. Immediately, Vidal hears this and he wants to get involved.
Yeah.
So he joins and he starts fighting in the streets.
He joins the 43 group.
He joins the 43 group. Wow. And this is what I love about this. So, according to Vidal, they didn't ever use any weapons. According to many others, weapons were used. That they weren't proactive with the weapons, but if the Nazis were using, fascists were using weapons, then they would use weapons as well. And some people would use like chains or knives, but Vidal Sassoon would bring his
blow dryer.
No, his trimming shears. He would
Trimming
bring his
shears.
trimming shears, and he would fight with his trimming shears.
Wow.
So I assume he would just get off work, throw his trimming shears in his pocket, and go beat up some fascists.
This reminds me of, it's amazing to see what this has influenced. So the 43 group probably influenced Inglourious Bastards.
Sure.
And then Vidal Sassoon probably influenced that movie, The Zohan.
That's right.
Because Adam Sandler plays a hairdresser that goes out and fights crime.
Yeah.
It's amazing where these ideas come from.
It's unbelievable. And in fact, the 43 group would give way to the 62 group, which would then give way to CST, which is Community Security Trust.
Okay.
Which is in England, the communal security organization for the Jewish community.
Okay.
So, their legacy is carried on in a direct fashion.
Okay.
So, he's involved with these people. He's out fighting with these people. Sometimes he shows up to work with a black eye, with bruises on his face. He always has this line that he says, "I slipped on a hairpin," and that seems to just shut down conversation. He doesn't talk a lot about his battles, but he does say at one point he got separated from the main group, which was something you weren't supposed to do, especially
Obviously.
because he's 17 years old at this time. These guys are like grown-ass men that have seen war. So he gets separated from the group. He ends up in like a little pub And the police are called. The fascists that he's fighting with get arrested. He gets arrested. He can hear from the jail cell that he's in, one of his buddies, Mo Levy, getting beaten up by the police. They're yelling, "Dirty Jew bastard, fucking Yid who Hitler missed, and sons of foreign whores." So, in this jail with police that are supposed to be protecting him, protecting his people, he hears them using anti-Semitic slurs, and it hits him hard. When he's talking to the judge, he tells the judge, these guys were the police were using anti-Semitic slurs. This guy, the judge, says police would never do that.
Yeah. They didn't have body cams back then.
They didn't have body cams back then, no. But, this is something that really sort of affects him deeply. So he's fighting with the 46 group. He's learning to cut hair.
43.
43 group. And then,
and it's oftentimes people mess up the number, the 40 thing. I've heard it called the 42 group.
Oh, okay.
It's the 43 group.
The 43 group.
Yeah.
42
Not
group,
the 46
different.
group.
They were a a cappella group.
Bum 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 fascists. Bum 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 fascist. Mr. Fascist, bring me a fascist. Excuse us. Yes, we're the 43 group. We're the 42 group. Yeah, we'd kind of like the name. Sorry, we already have the name. Bum 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 bum. You don't understand. We beat up fascists. You don't understand. We sing about beating up fascists. Bum 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 bum. Okay.
West Bank story.
So at this point, he gets drafted into the Royal Air Force, right? Because they still have a post-war draft going on. Gets drafted into the Royal Air Force. It's peacetime. He's not seeing any action in the Air Force, but during his first year there, he's allowed to return home, where he goes to synagogue he's allowed to return home for Yom Kippur, where he goes to synagogue and the rabbi is speaking about the Holocaust. Details are starting to emerge. He started, more and more they're understanding the scope and the scale of what occurred. And he's hurt, he's sad, he's angry, he's all these things that just burn inside him. He returns back to the barracks and accidentally bumps into this guy who turns to him and he says, "Who are you pushing around, you fucking Jew bastard?" That is the wrong thing to say to him at this point. He decks the guy, starts slamming his head into the pavement. Takes 6 guys to pull him off him. Says, "I don't think I'd ever hit anyone with the intention to maim permanently before that moment," right? The anti-Semitism on the base is just too much for him. He ends up going AWOL, goes back to his mom's house. His mom says, "What are you doing here? You can't be
Again.
here. Again, go back." Ends up back on base. The CO says, "Listen, I know you just had a difficult thing occur. I'm gonna look the other way, but you have to promise me that it's never gonna occur again." Right? He says, "I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna abide by anti-Semitism."
Yeah.
They lead him out of the room. They take him to an insane asylum. He spends a week drugged up in an insane asylum and then is discharged. All because he said he wouldn't deal with anti-Semitism.
Okay.
Another thing that inside of him affects him deeply and puts him in a spot where he feels like he needs to find his place, right? So, we're getting close to 1948, where the British Mandate ends, where this 1947, where the State of Israel is established. His mother's an avid Zionist. She's been having these meetings. He's brawling in the streets with fascists. He's brawling in the army with anti-Semites. And when the opportunity comes to go to the State of Israel to fight, he volunteers right away. Right? So he can't fly directly to Israel. They have a few stops along the way. He ends up stopping in Marseille. And in Marseille, there's a huge DP camp. And here, he actually comes face to face with actual Holocaust survivors. Because remember, most countries still weren't taking in Holocaust survivors. They weren't allowed to travel to Israel because the British had shut it down. So they leave these camps and they're just wallowing in these DP camps. And, the experience he sort of describes as the experience he sort of takes as as unmanageable. Anyways, he hears the stories about what's occurring. He sees these emaciated people that are still unable to eat full meals, and he has a conversation with a man that he doesn't know from anyone he's met in his life. Sits down and chats with him, and the conversation turns to the camps and quickly to the fact that the man's son was taken away from him as he entered the camp and sent to the gas chamber. The guy breaks down in tears. Vidal breaks down in tears. He's literally holding the guy as the guy collapses. It's, I think, a formidable moment in his life. And at this point, he can't wait to get to Israel to take the fight to them. Can't wait to get to Israel to get in the fight, right? When he arrives in Israel, he's given the opportunity. When he arrives in Israel, he's asked, what unit do you want to be in? He says, I want to be in the Palmach. The Palmach is the elite strike force within the Hagannah, which is the precursor to the IDF. So they send him down to Kibbutz Niram, which is in the area of Kibbutz Berg, one of the more fortunate kibbutzes during October 7th that was able to put up a strong defense. But at the time, it was within Israeli territory, right? His first action, the first time he faces direct fire, right? His unit takes a hill, right? They get to the top, and then tanks show up, right? Or Egyptian armor shows up.
Yeah.
They all retreat, turn around and run away. As he turns around to run away, his belt breaks. His pants fall down. He trips over and falls flat on his face.
This is a comedy of errors.
I know. He ends up trying to lift up his pants and run with his Sten gun at the same time. And he can see everyone else is 40 meters ahead.
They never taught us the word retreat in Hebrew. So
This one time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he ends up, his belt burst, pants flap around my ankles, fell flat on my face.
Mm-hmm.
He survives, though, and continues to fight. It's a crazy time. I mean, he talks about being in a foxhole, in a trench on what was known as Hill 18, holding it from Egyptian forces. There is a kibbutznik that is in his unit as well. They've been on this hill for 6 days. It's hot. It's nasty. They don't really have good rations. And this kibbutznik is running towards him with a thing of bully beef, like a can of beef. He's got a big smile on his face. Vidal has a big smile on his face. The kibbutznik chucks the can of beef to him. He catches it. He looks down at the beef. He looks back up, and half of the kibbutznik's face is gone. Got hit by a sniper. He's dead. This was one of the few times, or the only time, that Vidal really talks about how it affected him and how he was out of sorts. He immediately goes and throws up, and it becomes a terrible event that he will recount for many years to come.
Half of his head came away. A sniper caught him. I think it's the only time I really got out of sorts. I went to the end of the trench and just vomited.
Yeah.
He recounted in the 2010 interview. The vomit was not due to the canned beef. I swear, I love canned beef. Canned beef is my favorite thing. I would eat canned beef all day and all night. They were eating canned beef.
Yeah, I think when you're on the top of a hill in the deserts,
canned beef is it. Here's what I love about Jews. They would laugh about Vidal's pants falling down and stuff. The other side never does that. It's like, and then they kill the guy. I don't know exactly what they do on the other side, but I know Jews always have a sense of humor, even in the worst of times. Yes. It's really fun to watch.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I think obviously he could laugh about it afterwards. Oh, he fights in the war. He's there. He probably would have stayed in Israel for the rest of his life, but as soon as he returns, as soon as the war is over, he gets a telegram that says stepfather has had a heart attack. Come home and make a living.
Okay,
so he
as a Jewish boy, it's never enough. It's really, literally never enough. You're fighting. Your friend gets his head shot off after he throws you canned beef. Your pants are falling down while you're at war for Israel. And then it's like, come home and make a living. It doesn't stop as a Jewish boy. God! Continue. I mean, I'm just going through some stuff on my own right now.
So, he returns back home and he gets back into hairdressing. And, over...
How was your week? My friend got his face shot off while he threw me canned beef. Did you want a perm? You're going to have to be aware that if you're in the perm machine and bombs go off, you're going to have to stay in the perm machine. But, God, you'd be lucky if bombs went off. My friend's face went into 30 pieces after he threw me canned beef. Have a good Shabbos. Oh, great, a nickel tip. Thanks, Mrs. Moskowitz.
So that's sort of...
It's hard to be a Jew.
Especially on Christmas.
So, he returns back home, does the right thing by his family. He's already made a name for himself as a badass Jew. Over the next so many years, he's building up his ability to cut hair and becomes a competitive hair cutter. There's like hair cutting competitions, which he wins many of. He ends up in high demand. In 1954, he opens up his own salon.
In London.
Yep. On Bond Street. In 1963, he develops what's become known as the 5 points cut, which is this architecturally inspired haircut.
Take a look at this 5 points cut, Pete. Can we see what the 5 points haircut inspired by Vidal Sasson looks like? Oh, yeah.
That's it.
Oh, yeah. Jim Carrey wore it once in Dumb and Dumber. Also, I think a lot of Vulcans in the Star. I mean, that is innovative.
Yeah.
I will give it that. That looks like a girl that would dance with a thin cigarette at a discotheque and then say, I'm not interested, and walk away. Look at that. I mean, look, I don't know if it stands the test of time. Does that hold up now?
It spoke to people at the time.
You got to be real good looking in the face to pull this off. So I'm going to tell you that. I mean, come on. Okay, maybe. Cheekbones and a nice big vein up your neck. I mean, he was creative.
He was creative.
That was very creative. Is that him? Telling it.
That's him.
I swear, all the guys are going to love you. Why am I alone with my cat? Oh, your 5 point cut is so stellar. That's better. I like that. With the longer, I regard the 5 point cut. What was the quote about the 5 point cut there? I regard the 5 point cut as the finest cut I've ever created. The geometric design in its purest, most classical form. I think my dad did that to me once by accident. They wouldn't take me to a barber. They put a Tupperware bowl on my head and they just cut my hair. I swear it looked like that. Okay, the 5 point cut. That was his breakout.
Probably.
No.
Probably much.
No, ma'am.
Much cheaper. Your bowl cut was probably much cheaper.
It seems like my Flickr account is being suspended after I posted my 5 point cut. I mean, good for him, right? Innovative. Yeah.
Lucrative.
Women were paying big money for this cut.
Big money, lines out the door.
Wow.
And he became a celebrity. He wasn't just a hairdresser. He was the hairdresser.
Yeah.
He worked with a designer named Mary Quant, who was credited with creating the miniskirt and like the sort of like swinging 60s in London and all that jazz. So the two of them worked together.
His fashion and styling defined an era.
Yeah. Without a doubt. The sort of biggest example is he's cutting the hair for Mia Farrow for Rosemary's Baby.
Okay.
They fly him over, pay him $5,000, and they put him in a boxing ring, cutting hair in a boxing ring with all these photographers around.
I'm going to ask you this.
Yeah.
The movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
There's a hairdresser that is at dinner with the girl that gets killed but doesn't get killed because the end of the movie is different. I think it may be him. It is Vidal Sasson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Let me check this, and there we go.
Verifying.
No. might have been Cliff Booth. Sharon Tate, Roman Polanski, Folger's Cuff. That just says hair.
Jay Sebring. I guess it was Jay Sebring.
Jay Sebring. Oh, okay. Sebring and Tate. There you go.
Yeah,
all right, but he was bragging about how much he was paid to work on a movie, and it was less than what Vidal Sasson.
Yeah.
He said $1,000, and they go, $1,000 for the whole time? He goes, no, $1,000 a day, whether I cut her hair or not.
Okay. Now they just flew him in. He cut the hair and he left.
That's it.
$5K.
That's the way to do it. Yeah.
Right. So he gets name dropped in the movie. He's a star.
Yeah.
He's a star. Opens up schools. He's got Vidal Sasson hair cuttings academies all around the world. Gets a talk show.
Really?
He's got a talk show that ran for 2 years. Interviewed his mother. Brought his mother on. Just a celebrity. 1983, he sells his company and he devotes his time to philanthropy. A lot of which is based on is fighting anti-Semitism and in Israel, and opens the Vidal Sassoon International Center for the Study of Anti-Semitism.
Nice.
Yeah, still around to this day and still doing great.
Located where?
In Israel, I believe maybe with Haifa University.
Boy,
In conjunction with Haifa University.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that. In Israel,
Yeah.
Hebrew University.
Okay.
Excuse me, associated with Hebrew University in Israel, still doing great work. 2009, he's awarded a CBE, so he becomes a knight. So he's Sir Vidal Sassoon. And in 2012, unfortunately, he passes away from leukemia, leaving just an amazing legacy. It's hard to imagine. In reading about him again and learning more about him again, I so wish that he were still around today, because I think he would be a tremendous advocate for the Jewish people today.
Yeah. I mean, I love the fact that he came, and we see this more and more as a pattern, people coming from such humble, trouble-filled beginnings, achieving greatness and not forgetting where they came from.
Yeah.
And then making a haircut that most people would deem awful, making that go mainstream and somehow getting famous based off of this thing that he came up with, all based on the dream of his mother, who he somehow had to listen to, even though she abandoned him at one point.
Very true.
It's never a straight line, these stories.
It's never a straight line.
I love it. Vidal Sassoon, Badass Jew ranking 1 to 10.
8. No, 7.
Wow. Is it because he did hair after?
No.
Is it because the 5-point thing? I mean, there's...
I would put him at a 7 because there was only about 5 or 6 years where he was in that light.
Yeah.
You know.
But would take his own shears to a fight.
That's
Pretty
true.
badass.
That's true.
I'm going to give him an 8.2 on the Badass Jew meter. And, wow, it's amazing to find out how many badass Jews are amongst us. We're going to be back next week. Andrew Davidsburg. I'm Aaron Berg. That's Pete doing everything on the ones and twos. We'll see you next week.